with Madame Vecchio for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and welcome, Minister. I'm just going to read a little bit into the record first, just regarding some of your testimony. According to the OECD, Canada experienced a larger change in youth employment during the pandemic compared to the other OECD countries. In 2019, the year prior to the pandemic, Canada's youth employment rate was 11%. The youth unemployment rate in the UK was similar at 11.4%, higher in Ireland at 13.5%, and lower in Germany at 5.7%. In June 2020, the youth employment rate in Canada increased over 16 percentage points to 27.4%, which you alluded to. But in countries such as Germany and the UK, where job retention programs were introduced, they experienced increases of only 1.6 and 2.4 percentage points, respectively. By summer 2021, youth employment rates largely recovered, but remained elevated compared with their levels in 2019 across most of the OECD countries, and Canada was no exception. In Canada, the youth unemployment rate in June of 2021 was 2.6 percentage points higher than in June of 2019. The difference was lower for Germany and the UK, but slightly higher for Ireland. So specifically looking at this, because we know that there was job retention programs, in Canada we didn't actually have that. There was very, very different for people when it came to job retention. So Minister, I'm reading into the record so I can talk about key indicators. In 2016, we saw a doubling of the Canada Summer Jobs, where we saw a nominal increase between 2015 and 2016 of 0.1%. And so when I'm looking at the 2021 funding for the program that was 5 times more than in 2015, and removing the data from 2020 and 2021, can you advise me if quadrupling the actual funding for Canada Summer Jobs actually quadrupled the number of jobs?
Karen, thank you so much for the question and for the information that you provided. I'm going to start with 2015, 2016, because you made an excellent point. When this program started in 2015, it was at 35,000 jobs, and that simply was not enough. And that's why we doubled those jobs to 70,000 jobs. You make excellent points about the unemployment rate, and that is true. What we've done, though, with this program and the suite of programs that we have, and I'll talk about that in a second, is delve deeper into those numbers. Because what those general numbers don't show are the numbers for unemployment in Black communities, racialized communities, Indigenous communities. Those numbers are even greater, people with disabilities. And so that's what our national priorities with regards to those programs focus on.
Fantastic. Looking into that then, can you tell me with the quadrupling, what were the numbers then compared to Canada Summer Jobs if we're looking at it? What is the number of Canada Summer Jobs that were employed in that final year when it was quadrupled?
Okay, so what I can tell you is that this has been a program that has been severely oversubscribed for some time. So I'm going to give you some comparative numbers on that. In 2019, Karen, there were 148,000 people that applied for this program. I'm sorry, 79,000 were actually programs that were offered, so jobs that were offered. Okay, so I'm looking at basically doubling those numbers. So this is a program where 148,000 people wanted to take part, organizations, 79,000.
So I'm sorry, Minister, so that was in 2019, it was yes. 79,000 jobs?
It was 148,000 jobs that were requested, 79,000 were provided. It was meant to be 70, but there was
looking at those numbers, so it went from 2015, where you're saying it was 35,000, 2016, which was 70,000.
That's right.
2019,
that's right.
It's only 79,000.
And then it goes up from there because we had a pandemic.
So let's take those pandemic years out of there.
I don't think we can, Karen.
I think it's important that we do, though, because
I don't think we can take them out because that was catastrophic. And when we look at the mental health of kids, when you look at kids who were doing high school at home, and we've got to remember that we've got a suite of programs in the youth employment strategy. Canada Summer Jobs is one of them, and it's high schoolers,
Minister,
right?
I really respect what you're saying there, though I think with the pandemic, we did see the government explode with a lot of money that came out of there. We can talk about the We Charity, but I don't think that's the right thing to do in this space.
No, but it was necessary. But it was necessary to increase
the number of jobs.
There.
When we looked at the number, the fact that job retention programs, that actually we had close to 30% of Canadian youth not working compared
And
to
it went
what
down
other
to
countries.
10.
But compared to other countries, OECD countries, that we only saw an increase of 2-3%. There was a different approach that we could have taken where kids may be able to have the opportunity to work. I just want to move on to another thing because we do know that over the 5-year period, there was a change. So how did you communicate to constituents, not only to the members of parliament, but to employers? Because we know in 2022, we went back down. So the number that was provided for funding reduced. Yeah, pre-pandemic funding.
The 2019 funding.
So can you advise, how did people who were applying for this, how did people in the communities know that there was less than half of what there was the previous year?
So, Karen, this is a program run by 338 MPs.
But
this is a program run by 338 MPs who have priorities, right? And I know that in my riding of Toronto Centre, I basically said, we are going back to pre-pandemic numbers.
Minister, did all of them...
And then put my priorities, as MPs can do.
And Minister, we're so
them the way they need to be.
Minister, we're so fortunate because we have that experience. I'm thinking of members of parliament who joined us in 2021.
I joined in late 2020, so
but
I'm one of
you
those
also
new
are very
members.
aware of the program. Were there a lot of members of parliament in 2021 that did
I wasn't that aware of the program, and
but
so I
were
can
there
speak
other...
to my experience as a new MP.
Okay,
and what I'll say to you, Karen, is
Minister,
that...
this is really important for my time.
Please go ahead.
So we know that many people had a reduction. Were the new members of parliament aware of the reduction? Because I know that from speaking to members of parliament, they weren't aware, and people in our communities were not aware that the money had been decreased over the last 4 years.
It was listed in FES, in the fall economic statement.
Okay.
It was there.
So
and
Canadian companies knew. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vecchio.